After maneuvering for several clicks along a dirt road, Brett noticed a change in Chopper's demeanor. He had anticipated that he'd see a signal from Chopper that indicated the dog had detected the odor of explosives, but Brett was not seeing Chopper's usual body language. Previously, whenever Chopper smelled explosives, he hoisted his tail straight up like a flag and shook it from side to side. It reminded the men of a rattlesnake alerting others to his presence. In addition, his movements became more rapid and intense as he zeroed in on the explosive's exact location. Now Brett was seeing Chopper do something entirely different. The dog's body had gone rigid, and he had assumed the stance of a show dog in the ring. Chopper's head was raised, and he was staring straight ahead. His front shoulders were at attention and stretched forward, and his rear haunches were also straining forward. Brett could feel all that strain and tension on the leash. Then he heard Chopper emit a low, whiny whimper. Brett knew immediately what the dog was telling the platoon. They were not alone. The enemy was close by, somewhere out there in the dark night. Brett called out, "Hey, Chopper," and the dog looked at him briefly before resuming his stance. Brett filled the rest of the men in on what Chopper had detected with his nose. The platoon immediately fell out and assumed an anti-ambush formation, finding cover behind rocks and trees. Brett waited a moment, then unclipped the lead, held the dog by the halter, and whispered, "Revier," a command that means search. Brett released him, and Chopper eagerly sprang forward and disappeared into the darkness. Suddenly, Brett and the other men heard a ferocious commotion, a combination of dog snarls and human shouts and agonized screams coming from down a shallow embankment yards ahead of them. The forward members of the team advanced to the embankment, and shortly afterward the others heard a few bursts of gunfire. Then the night was dark and quiet again, until the stillness was broken by a SEAL team member calling, "Target is clear." Chopper emerged from the embankment, breathing a little more heavily but unscathed. His head held high, he trotted back toward Brett. The handler knelt and clipped the dog back into his lead. "Brafi." Brett used a word that Chopper recognized as praise. He petted the dog and ran his hands along Chopper's flanks. Chopper curled into him and lifted his snout into the air. A few other men passed by, each with some sign of praise or thanks for Chopper. Chopper sat there and took it all in, but for him it was just another day at the office. Most of the team then busied themselves with defending the perimeter while a small group checked out the embankment. They discovered that 4 insurgents had been using the embankment as an ambush nest until Chopper came along and caught them by surprise. He had held them at bay, snarling and biting, until the forward members of the team arrived with their loaded rifles. There was a Russian PKM machine gun, several AK-47s, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition in the embankment. The team cleared the 4 dead bodies from the site and detonated the munitions and weapons. It was a good night's work for a hard-working platoon, with an unforgettable assist from a well-trained warrior dog with a life-saving nose.